I publish 3 community newspapers, and I had the pleasure of being in Mansfield for a week. Yeah, so over to my colleague, Chris.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Look, I think for a very long time we've been sitting and also having Zoom meetings sitting, but I'd rather stand up because I'm very animated, and I feel like if I'm sitting down, I'm not going to be doing justice to my feedback. So if my colleagues can allow me, that I can stand up and do the presentation.
Okay. Chris, I have one thing I need to just do quickly.
All right.
There's some rules. You guys are in our esteemed presence as publishers. So we've got, I see everybody's very looking curiously at the merchandise. And you also know that I've been asking for chili in every place I ever went to. So, so there's a little competition, right? What we're going to do, we're going to, whoever likes a post, Richland Source post, we're going to give you 1 bottle. Wow. If you sign up on the emails, we're going to give you the other bottle.
And then don't give away mine, because this one is mine.
I said 2 bottles. And lastly, if you clap, whoever claps the loudest for us after the presentation gets a Richland bag. Oh. I'm just kidding, guys. But you can have the sauce and the bag.
Fantastic. Okay. All right, colleagues, thank you so much. I think our visit at Richland Source down in Mansfield was such a perfect match for Shirley and myself. And I'm not saying in particular for Shirley, because she loves hot sauce, and this so happens to be one of their merch. And I think this is one, gifts that they give some of their clients. You can take some time to read at the little comments that they make here, which is very, 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 very clever. So, guys, I will stand up and do the presentation because I'm more comfortable standing up. I just believe that today is actually one of the most important days one of the most important days of the entire trip here in America for me personally, because I've got the opportunity now to give feedback on the experiences that Shirley and I had at Richland Source. And unfortunately, you guys were not there. So that kind of responsibility that's bestowed on our shoulders, it's my opportunity now to actually give you feedback and hope to inspire you guys, but also inspire the publishers that are in South Africa. Because really, we cannot come close to kind of imagining the information that we got from them was so invaluable. And even this presentation that we put together is inspired by, one of the tools that they use, Canva. So we thought, let's rather practice what we preach. Let's put everything into action. And that's why we actually even designed this presentation on Canva, which is one of the tools that they're using. So we are really leading by example, and we are really putting into motion things that we've learned there. So my name is Christopher Mtwenga. I'm here going to be presenting with Shirley Govender. And we had an amazing experience at Richland Source, which is a publication that's in Mansfield, which is part of the Richland County in Ohio. So, Bill, you can go through to the next slide. So how we looked at our visit there was based on pretty much a proverb that says, a man who chases 2 rabbits catches none. So our approach was that let's focus on specific areas that we are strong at. Shirley is a legend when it comes to, a veteran when it comes to journalism. So she would lean into more of the journalistic questions, and whereas I'm more strong on the business side and the more operations and the tool side, and also the business of media side. So I leaned more in towards that kind of insight from our host there in Mansfield. So that's how we've actually structured the presentation, to cover business, the products, the services, the tools, and then Shirley will cover more of the newsroom and solutions journalism. All right, next slide. Thank you. So Source Media Group Properties is the publisher of Richland Source, and Richland Source, or pretty much Source Properties, also registers as Richland Times, which is LLC, which is pretty much a privately owned for-profit company. So it is a for-profit company. I'm hoping Jay already is also there. They are fantastic. And so Richland Source is a nationally recognized online community news organization founded in 2013 by Carlton Ferniak, or we call him Carl. Amazing guy. All right. Now the platform, the news platform serves the citizens of North Central Ohio. And this statement that comes up next is really important and kind of underscores the culture that they have and the reason why they actually do exist in that community. It is driven by the deeply held belief that news organizations, especially now, serve their communities best when they are involved in it. So when we arrived at Mansfield, we really felt that sense of community, the friendliness, the warmth. And I think with us giving feedback to you right now, we can't really replicate what we felt. But I'm sure throughout the presentation, you will see that, we were welcomed with open arms, and the news organization, the newspaper itself, the news platform itself and its people are really embedded within the community. And that pretty much is like the DNA of the organization. Next slide. All right, so now why was it founded? Now I'm going to take you down memory lane here. Before I do that, let me just say it was founded in 2013, and as you can see, we are in 2023 this year. So in a couple of days' time, they'll be turning 10 years old. And I hope I get an invite and a flight ticket. Jay, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. But yeah, but it was founded on the it's founded in 2013 with the imperative to find an innovative way to impact our community and reach sustainability at the same time. I know that's a very focused statement, but I want to just give you a little bit of history behind why it was actually founded, why this online news platform was founded. So the Richland County is one of many counties that form part of the Ohio state. And the Ohio state, if I'm correct, is also forming part of what was a kind of an economic corridor that was hustling and bustling and really filled with activity, economic activity during the times where the war stopped and the manufacturing of weaponry turned into an industrial kind of activity with a lot of industries such as automotive industry, the steel works, the metal works. There was a lot of industrial activity happening in Ohio State, being pretty much dead center, but in also reaching up on the kind of Rochester side, Buffalo, and also reaching all the way down to the greater parts of Indiana and Michigan as well. So they labeled that area as a Rust Belt. And you ask yourself the question, why the Rust Belt? It's because once there was a slowdown of the industrial activity due to factories closing down, because of industries realizing that it's much easier and cheaper to actually manufacture automotive in other countries because of the cost of labor. Factories started closing down in that particular economic corridor of industrial activity. So factories started closing down or being abandoned, which meant that jobs were being lost, all right? Because now it's much cheaper to manufacture motors in, let's say, other countries like China, et cetera, or other industries started moving out of that space. So that meant that the economy of that particular corridor or that Rust Belt started going down, and more young people started moving into service-based job opportunity areas, meaning that that Rust Belt was now all of a sudden starting to become more of an older generation, communities without having much sight for innovation and more things happening, all right? So which meant buildings were being abandoned, houses were being left, no economic activity, very sad situation, all right? Now, Carl Ferniak is part and parcel of that community, and you could see this, right? However, there is a news organization, a newspaper that is currently there. It was not really helping much to reviving the spirit of the community, as they were focusing on the news. It bleeds, it leads, but they were not really focusing a lot more on uplifting the community and getting it kick-started again and instilling some hope. And that's where the Source Media Group, or the Richland Source, realized that the community needs a news source that is credible, that is embedded within the community, that has got the objective of bringing the community together and lifting the economic activity, and also bringing back the fiber of community within that area. So that is why it was founded. So it's an online news platform with great journalism. Next slide, thank you. So you say to yourself, oh, wow, this sounds so big. This organization is massive. They're actually only a 20 full staff team staff. And I'm saying that because we've seen some other organizations that are only 2-man show, 3-man show. But I think with the opportunities that they are doing and they are venturing into, that 20 team staff complement is actually relatively small when it comes to the amount of impact that they are aiming to achieve. And that's amazing. And it's a 50-50 split between editorial and sales, which is also a nice thing, because you have salespeople say, well, we're bringing in the money, and journalists are eating the money, but there's nothing like this. It's a 50-50 split, and it's a really good staff complement. They also have 3 news platforms. So Richland Source being the one that was established first, and then after that they launched Knox, Pages, and Ashland Source as well. All of them are purely online, no print whatsoever. Now, let's talk about the products, the services, and what they offer, how they make their money, and how they make their organization run. Like I said earlier on, I'll be focusing more on the business side and all the products, etc. And then Shirley will cover the news side. So they offer advertising on the Richland Source website. So I'll go deep diving into the actual what advertising they offer. So advertising is one of the things that they offer on their website. The next slide. And then we're moving fast.
You're good. No.
I'm good. All right, super. So this slide here, I thought I'd just add this here as well, because it kind of displays how they approach advertising. They want to give confidence that they want to give the local advertisers confidence that their adverts are being seen, right? And they also, they've got a variety of advertising solutions as well, which I will unpack just now. And also they are actually a partner to local businesses, to making sure that local businesses don't just have advertising slots being sold. They want to be a creative participant of making sure that that client gets a return on investment. So they are your creative partner when it comes to advertising. And that is solutions-based. And it's so indicative of what that company's culture is like. They really want to have some kind of solutions and impact. All right. Another revenue source. And okay, excuse the pun there, but another revenue source that they have is what they call Source Brand Solutions, which is a marketing agency. So they've got advertising, local advertisers advertise, and then they've got a marketing agency. And that marketing agency has got a brand by itself as well. All right. As you can see, I'm wearing it, Brand Solutions. And it's beautiful because now it is actually, you can move on to that, it's fine. Now, Source Brand Solutions is an amazing pillar of this business, because it actually is similar to what Mediate Media is doing as well, where we are looking at not just helping people get advertising or advertising on our newspaper, but also giving them solutions, meaning that we don't want to turn away money. If we can help you, let us help you. Along the line, there will be a benefit for both. So what do they specialize in? So they specialize in the 3 main areas of marketing are digital advertising. So I'll unpack that a little bit. So digital advertising is they do Google ads, not only on their website, but also buy Google ads on behalf of clients. All right. Because we might see Google as being a competitor, but they see it as an enabler. If a client wants to have a Google campaign and they don't have the capacity, then their team assists to buying Google inventory on behalf of their client, and they do it very well. All right. Now, another thing is social media ads. So Facebook or Instagram, and I'm sure that you've seen ads being fighted on Facebook and Instagram. They don't see those platforms as a competitor. They see them as an enabler, another platform that they could help their clients in their community to reach the people that they need to reach. So they'll do that on their behalf as well, and obviously display ads. So, and the other part as well, which is very important, is the sales conversion, right? The sales conversion is pretty much focused on how best can we guarantee a return on investment for a client. Yes, we can sell you an ad on your website, but how best can we make sure that that ad turns into a conversion, turns into an acquisition, phone ringing or email or walk through the door? So they help establish things like website development. So they'll create a website for a client if it's the best fit for a client. So they will help you do that. They also create landing pages. So you might want to build a database of people around an event, as an example. So they'll create the advertising that runs on Richland Source, but then they'll create a landing page which funnels the audience to making sure that those people are acquired in a sense. And that's what is a landing page. Okay, so they help you establish that as well. And also email marketing, which is a really broad topic. So email marketing would range from setting up an email marketing campaign on behalf of the clients, as an example. So those are the kind of solutions they have for their marketing services. The other one as well is the brand management. So that's also falling under Source Brand Solutions. So they'll do audience research, maybe deep diving into, if you're a client and you want to find out a specific thing about a specific audience, let's say motoring, and they will conduct some audience research on your behalf, maybe with Google Forms, etc. And then strategy. Strategy is very important here because we actually were part of a sales pitch to a local bank. And I will never forget his name. His name is Bob Boss. And Shirley at some stage thought Bob Boss is just another name like John Smith.
I thought they gave him the name because he was the boss of the bank.
So his name is Bob Boss.
Yeah.
So we went in there, and I think Shirley's going to share a little bit more about this as well, but we went in there on a sales call. We never knew. I thought it was a sales meeting. It was presented as a sales meeting. So I'm like, okay, we're going to go in there and talk about targets. We're going to talk about who's doing what, but it was actually a sales call, and it was a joint sales call. It was a salesperson, salespeople, an entourage. I think it was about 5 or 6 of us, sales and editorial, going in and doing a joint call, a joint sales pitch. And what was fascinating about this is that the presentation was already there. The budget was already there. It was laid out, and it was literally a plug and play because they use a certain formula to put together proposals so that it's not a long thing to put together a formula. So I think that's one of the things that we can take out from them is there are tools that are available for you as publishers to have preset up proposals that when a client comes, all you need to do is shift the budget and obviously adjust just the main things that you are selling the client, as opposed to coming to think of how I'm going to put this together, who's going to put this together. So they've got these things kind of pre-created as well, which was amazing. And also media buying. So media buying, didn't go into too much about that, but I don't want to speculate, but they do media buying. I'm assuming it's through ad networks as well. All right, so I've been speaking about the revenue. So I want to share with you the revenue split now. And as you can see, the lion's share is advertising. So I thought I'll do kind of a granular breakdown of what that advertising revenue stream looks like as well, so that you can kind of understand why it's such a huge amount. And then also they have the individual membership. So now individual membership has got different packages or different tiers based on the reader's interest and the reader's ability to kind of, or the readers want, you know. So the packages are not just based on the news that you're going to get on the website, but they're also linked to other things like value adds, which Shirley will share, you know, discounts at a certain store, discounts on a ticket or tickets that you can have when you are a specific member. So there's different tiers to the membership. So they've got membership as one of the revenue generators. And then they also have corporate membership and philanthropy. So that's one thing that I've noticed when I came here to America, is that philanthropy is quite a big thing. People are willing to invest, not rather invest, they are willing to support rather. They're willing to support journalism, and they're willing to support news. So they also have corporate members, people that are saying, we love what you're doing, and we are willing to continuously support you with a specific, obviously, package that they would support them with. So let's do the last one is, well, how can I forget this one? 20% of their revenue comes from the marketing agency side. So 20% is quite a bit. And I'm thinking about it from the context that if this does not exist, you still have something there that you are not actually having to do heavy lifting. It's a matter of you using Canva to create some Instagram posts on behalf of clients. It's a matter of understanding how you buy advertising on Meta and how you charge for that. For example, you ask a client for $100, you know, out of that $100, $80 would go towards the actual Meta account, and then the other one is the management fee. That's what we do as Mediate Media. So, and you don't even own Facebook. You're just making money because you know you've got the expertise, you've got the capacity to do it. And if you do it really well, they'll come to you. But then you also have got those other elements that you can plug in. Like, have you considered targeting a specific area? Maybe display advertising on our website would work best for you. You see, so now that adds on to the way that they want to find solutions to clients' needs, as opposed to selling them space and advertising. Okay, so let's look at a deep dive into the advertising. You can see 34% is local display advertising. Those are the banners on the website. Those are the banners on the website, right? And then you've got sponsorships. Now, what sponsorships is that a particular company can sponsor a particular page for a duration of time. For example, you'll have a tire company. Tires are called brands here, I believe.
No, they're called tires.
They're called tires. Okay, great. So tires for a particular section, like say, for example, sports. So you'll have one company sponsoring the sports section. So it happens to be a tire company, and they'll have that period, that section for a period of time, and then they will pay for that. So that's pretty much the sponsorship, right? And obviously, there's other things that they will throw in there as well. It's part of sponsorship. Then there's programmatic. Now, programmatic advertising is, just to kind of break it down to you, is programmatic is selling off your remnant inventory, your unsold online inventory. So for example, if you've got 1 million people coming to your website and you're only selling 10% of that, it means that you've got 90% that you could have sold, but you didn't sell it directly by yourself. So you put that out on the marketplace, and then people can bid, the agencies can bid on a good CPM, which is a cost per 1,000 that they would like to buy that inventory for. And then you're making money pretty much while sleeping, but you're focusing on really driving the traffic and making sure that you're giving your members quality content. So that's programmatic ads. And then another part is 13% marketing strategies, which means a bouquet of things that you would add on with this, emails, banners, etc. And then sponsored content, which is labeling your kind of what we call fluff, writing about a company. So they will do that as well.
It's a little more complicated.
Okay, I'll call it fluff for now. But yeah, it's really promoting businesses by writing about what they are doing and what they with an advertising intention. Let's put it that way. Obviously clearly labeled as sponsored content. All right. And then general content creation. So that's another part that we could be focusing on, we could look at, perhaps not from a newsroom perspective, perhaps a dedicated person that would be good at creating content for people that want websites. A person that would then give a client to say, here's a content extraction form. Please tell us about your business. Then they will write the about us, they will write the services, etc., so that they could use that content to develop a website. Okay, so that's another kind of revenue generating, and then also websites as well. So let's go to this one. This is very exciting, and I hope that I do a good job in sharing this with you, because this is another revenue generating mechanism that is focused on making sure that quality journalism is paid for. All right. Now we know the cost of creating good content is expensive, okay? Because you have got the overheads of the person to create that content. You've got the actual resources that are needed to create content, either whether it is to go and interview a source, as an example, the accommodation that's involved. But if there is a specific topic that a community is struggling with, for example, in this case, they did a series of articles around Grey Matters, which focuses on the senior citizens of the community. Are there healthcare facilities available for them? Are they being looked after? What is the support for these senior citizens? Remember the story I told you earlier on about the Rust Belt and about the senior communities in these areas. So they decided to look and deep dive into quality journalism around what are other people doing in other areas around the care of senior citizens. But when they put together a strategy like this, they make sure that they understand what the budget is to get this done. It means that they need to take a journalist out of the newsroom, but be able to replace that journalist with someone who's going to continue doing the normal news, the normal beats. But if this person is out of the newsroom and focusing on a particular topic, this person is to be funded. So they put together a proposal that allows the team at Richland Source to go and find funding from businesses, from the community. Another one, Bill, if you could just go to the next slide.
Sure can.
Another one is this one called Rising from Rust, which is particularly talking about the whole Rust Belt. So they did a series of articles around what are other counties doing to rise from rust? What's the evidence? What are innovative tactics that they're using to kind of shake off this rust in their community? And then they dedicated a journalist to go and write a series of articles around this, but that comes at a cost. And it does not get paid by advertising or the other marketing services. It needs to be a project-specific approach. So what they do then, they put together the next slide. Sorry. So they put together a package, or rather a budget, and they go out to potential funders. And these funders might not necessarily be your normal advertisers. There might be people in the community that don't find the need to advertise in the Richland Source, but they are invested in the community, meaning that they want to support something. So how they've done it is that they say, this is a cause that we want to support. We want to really go and find innovation around how we can solve this problem in the community. We want to take a journalist who's going to be dedicated to go and finding the solutions, but it comes at a cost and we need your support. Then they will put together a package and say, for foundation level, we need 10,000 Rand, and we only need one person who's going to be our foundation sponsor. And then obviously with that foundation sponsor, you get all the other bells and whistles, which Shirley will unpack for you. Then they'll say we need 3 $5,000 sponsors. And I like this sliding scale because it allows even the community members who feel that they would like to support this series of content. It gives them an opportunity as well to contribute to this content because they see it as something that will be a catalyst into fixing something. All right, so that is fantastic. I really love this concept because it just takes away that whole notion that advertising needs to pay for the normal operations. And when advertising disappears, it's like a matter of where do we get grants? But they are very specific and intentional about finding projects that will support a journalistic project that will help the community rise. Okay. Now, happy staff guarantees, great service. I thought I'd add this in here because sometimes we kind of brush it off. And then when it comes to hiring people, we don't really look at what commission structures do you use. So I thought I'd have to ask this. They pay 15% commission on new contracts. And also obviously because of the variety of advertising and marketing services that they offer. Certain clients have got different ways of invoicing. Some might be monthly clients, etc. So they will pay their commission to their salespeople based on the client's invoicing structure. I hope that makes sense. If I'm going too fast, please do let me know. Great. That's the commission model.
Next.
Yes, please.
Thank
All right. Next one. Okay, so I thought, let me quickly unpack some of the tools that they are using because they work so efficiently. They are really good at what they're doing. Not only is the team dynamic, they are also kind of, they've got a good working, let's call it a working culture, you know, and that working culture is based on let us get things done. All right, let us work well, let's get things done. And I think because of their tech stack, they're able to kind of make sure that things are done when they need to be done. All right. Now they use a CRA. Well, they used to, they're using HubSpot now. Sorry, they used to use Pipedrive. So CRM, I'm not sure, just show of hands if everyone knows what a CRM is. CRM. Okay. Customer relationship management system. All right. So customer relationship management. Now, you know what, we might think that it's nothing to really worry about because we're a one-man shop or we've got 2 people working on a newspaper. But I think a CRM is something that we should really invest in because it allows you to kind of have a mindset of scaling. Because if you start onboarding new salespeople, you need to know what the history is of a specific client. Right now, it's sitting on our emails. And I'm one to say that because sometimes we have our emails as crash and I lose the history of what the spend of the client has been. Or maybe I might have lost track of a sales lead that was warm and needed to be warmed up a little bit to be hot. So they use a CRM that allows them to keep track of what's going on with their clients and make sure that they give the service that the client deserves. Another one that they use is called Panda Docs. They use that for contracts. All right. Now, obviously, most of these have got a licensing fee that you would license out. So it is a cost, but it's something that you could look at from a how do I make my organization bigger? How do I plan for the future? How do I plan for success? So they use Panda Docs, which allows them to send contracts and allow clients to approve contracts without having to go and email, sign, and attach. All right, fine. Moving faster. Invoicing, they use QuickBooks. And now we talk about Lead AI. All right, I'll send you the slide. So Lead AI is one of the initiatives that they do, which is amazing because it frees journalists time to focus on real journalism. All right. Now, instead of having a sports writer writing about the outcomes of a sporting event, that sports writer could be writing a profile about a really prominent and upcoming sports star in the community, and that takes more time. So Lead AI, what it does, it takes user-generated outcomes of events with another tool, and then generates articles, automates articles based on previously inserted outcomes articles of that particular game, and then it publishes it online. So it's not really about taking a robot and writing it in a robot kind of way. It really is a good read. It's not really written very clinically, but it is written in a way that a normal journalist would write that sports article.
It's a very lead formula that we already plug stuff into. It's automating what we kind of already do automatically.
Yeah. Okay. So that's Lead AI. It's not like a robot. I'm going to go fast here. Shane mentioned this. And then the last slide, which I don't have time for, but I'd really love to do this, especially with our roadshow in South Africa. Jay Allred leads by example. You know, you can give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, but if you teach him how to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. And that's kind of underscores how Jay Allred approached our time being there. Because he taught me this formula, which I'm very dramatic, wrote down here, of which we don't have time to go through. Okay. So this formula that is written here is really a formula that allows you to crystallize your value proposition, whether it is around a project, whether it is around your actual business, or whether it is around you defining your value proposition as a content creator or a website or a news organization. So it's really just to go through it very quickly. It's all about the hour, which is the project, the organization, and then it helps the user, which is your target audience, who wants to, and that's to want to get a job done by, and then there's a verb that goes in there that you could, by doing what, and then to reduce a specific pain, because there's always a pain. If the client has a pain, a reader has a need, so you need to reduce that pain, and by replacing it, okay, by a verb, and then you get the user gain. So there's a pain that you need to identify, the platform, the audience. You want to get a job done by reducing a pain in order for them to have a specific outcome. So by looking at things this way, you can crystallize your value proposition and get projects done like what they're doing with solution journalism. Gentlemen, ladies, please let me not overstay my welcome. I'll hand over to my colleague, Shirley Govender. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So this is the quote that the first thing when we sat down with Jay Albert, the publisher and president, he said, he read this out to us. And it epitomizes everything that Office is all about. You are the center of the wheel. Now, this is about Richland Source. This is what this lady is saying about Richland Source. Gives us hope, brings ideas, makes us think, it makes us question, and gives us hope for our community and ourselves. So you are the center of the wheel that connects business. This is exactly what we're doing in our newsrooms. So I identified fully with that. Next, so, you know, we had all these, well, we had 2 or 3 Zoom meetings prior to us coming into the US. And the thing about solutions journalism was like a sort of a burning issue that I needed to unpack, because I couldn't understand what was going on, but I had a sense that we were already doing it in some way. But now there was a label to that. And obviously it was a far more in-depth look into how we were already trying to solve problems as publishers. Jay is, like Chris said, he's an incredible man. He's the president of Source Media Properties and so on, but I'm also going to rush it up as well. This stood out for me, his first quote: "I take a lot of joy in seeing core operating principles create an environment for great journalism to happen and putting something good into the world." That was for me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you signaled me to switch.
Okay, so for me, that was mind-blowing. His gentle manner and even the hospitality received. I mean, this entire office was typical Ohio hospitality, that sort of almost old school sharing and caring, and we were all learning. This, however, does not take away from his being laser focused on business. He has championed solutions journalism as a way to serve the community and tap into local funding. This is exactly what we can do in our own newsrooms. We can turn our stories around that we are doing, and we can follow this. This, for me, is one of the key takeaways from my visit to Richland Source. And he says we market the hell out of our solutions journalism network. And how are they doing this? How is he getting the funding? It's about making sure that this part is done. The proper, rigorous, evidence-based reporting on responses to social issues. We managed to make it impactful and relevant because our newsroom is involved in the community. They are totally grassroots, just like how our own offices are. This is what he said, and he's doing this. He was addressing a summit in Chicago, and he said it was about what was it about? It was a success summit. So he spoke about the intense but fruitful journey of raising $72,000 in just 30 days, when the goal was $50,000. This is something. And how does he do it? The funders come from supporters who do not have necessarily have reason to advertise, but he's selling how they run it. He's selling, but they had without having a reason to advertise, but had a stake in the journalism that provided community solutions. So in other words, he makes his funders the heroes of the story. So this is why there's value, that value. And he's literally a guru at raising funds, leveraging solutions journalism for revenue. Okay. Okay, so as you already heard, Chris spoke about the 3 projects, the solution journalism project. So I'm not going to go into that. Next slide. Okay, here. So here's the amazing team that we had to interact with for a whole week. Incredible people, very open, very caring, teaching us. It was a wealth of information. It was overwhelming at times because I was anxiously trying to soak up everything everybody was telling us. It was really, it will change my newsroom for sure. So this is the thing, is that the marketing team and the journalists work very closely together. So like they say, effective marketing by this team invites customers or community stakeholders to see themselves in a story as heroes and positions Richland Source as a wise and trustworthy guide. That is very powerful. Also, it lays out the stakes of a purchasing decision so clearly that the choice is no longer transactional. It's an emotional and financial investment in a better future for everybody. That is the superpower of good solutions journalism.
Well, I want to say that.
Oh yeah, I don't know who Santa is. I really tried to analyze that. Yeah.
It's bad luck to find out who Santa is.
So, like I said, Richland Source is very grassroots. It's so invested in its community. They have loyalty like no other. 1,100 just on their memberships. They've got, look at their newsroom and local partners, but I'll go into that a little bit later. Full. The stories, you got followers, 51,000 on Facebook. It's there. And they do a lot of events as well. So, and of course, the different mediums that they use to send out the information. I've always talked, whenever I introduce myself of what I do, I always say my publication is a watchdog for my area. It's something, it's like me and watchdogs always together. However, what I learned at Richland Source is that through proper journalism, you are guiding your community. So you're no longer the watchdog. You are in a sense, but you're more of a guide dog. And that is also, see, watchdog reporting is not enough. Thriving communities need guide dogs. Again, the grassroots, the thing about the investment in their communities. So they help people to navigate their lives. That's what solutions journalism is all about. You're weighing everything, and then you're looking at hard evidence, and you're presenting all of that, and that's how we have progress.
Just so you don't become a lapdog.
Very, very important.
So what are the kind of news they're reporting on? Their value system is very much, they're more holistic than the traditional kind of news that we publish in our publications. It's more the good stuff, but it doesn't mean that they're not taking the challenges and reporting on that as well. But the thing is, they're not dwelling on that. Like when we've got a murder, we've got load shedding, we completely, every day, every issue, all our posts, we're indulging our readers even to dwell in that, to keep complaining. This is quite a different approach. Look, we've all experienced the fatigue that comes with only reading negative news. Some of us don't even want to watch the news anymore because it's the same thing on a different day. But this is what change happens by adding rigorous coverage of solutions. Richland Source tells the whole story, and it is about very important. We also absolutely report the challenges confronting our region, but we don't live off it. We could drive a lot more page views with a crime-heavy focus, like some of us do, but that would be that would not be an accurate reflection of the community. So their editorial is all about promotion, growth, building relationships. Because of the state of like all the empty buildings and the rust issue and all of that. So they're in the process of building. And I think it is essential for us as news leaders to be doing. Thank you. Does the story serve our community, or does it just serve our short-term business interests? If not, then the story really gets reported. They touch on it, not dwelling, and move on, right? Next one. Okay, so this is one of I'm presenting two case studies that we can go back and apply. These are the key takeaways for me from the Richland Source. So the one is the Healing Hope project through Solutions Journalism. And here we have Solutions and Engagement Editor Brittany Scott. She was in this entire thing is about how a small town newspaper took on the issue of infant mortality and united the town around solutions with a community baby shower. On the next slide is a video. So we're about to go into that.
We have time for it.
Do we have time? Okay, let's just watch the video.
We have 5 minutes left.
Okay, let's watch the video. I'm going to stop it at that point because it gives you a good idea of what solutions journalism is all about and why we need to implement it.
I am currently 27 weeks and I'll be 28 on Sunday. When I first got pregnant, where I went to look for information, I don't really know actually.
Richland County, which is where we live and report, was ranked last among Ohio's 88 counties for infant mortality rates. And last was a bad thing.
It was still just kind of a throwaway line in a political speech that really seemed to stick out. We spent several weeks into months researching, figuring out how we were going to attack this and not just tell the story, but look for how other people are approaching this particular problem in their communities.
Solutions journalism is all about looking for the solution to the problem instead of just presenting the problem. We were kind of doing that before we even knew what solutions journalism was. I was sitting in the office on a Sunday afternoon and my publisher, Jay Allred, walks in the room.
There was a section in that last of the 3 stories that talked about the cost of baby boxes.
Baby boxes are an idea that comes from Finland that has babies basically sleeping in cardboard boxes, but they're really cute, baby-friendly cardboard boxes.
And I did some quick math and I realized that most mid-sized companies in the county spend more on a golf outing than it would take to give a box to every single birth mother in the county, along with all the educational resources that came along.
In January, we brought in all the players that might be involved in infant mortality somehow in Richland County.
And then put that report in front of them and just said, look, we need to think about this.
I know meeting that I have.
SJN wanted us to look at what can you do with audience engagement.
So then it was a question of how do you make infant mortality engaging?
Somebody came up with this idea of what if we just flipped the script?
Instead of focusing on the sad parts of infant mortality, let's focus on the positive parts of being pregnant and having a baby. And what's more positive than a baby shower?
I think that was what led to what became an all hands on deck event.
We wanted to use whatever salesmanship and marketing expertise that we had in order to make sure that participants were aware of the event and could be here.
I never knew like a community could put on such a big event for all people that are pregnant and then people that have even had children already.
At 9 a.m., I walked outside to help people unload their cars, and I could already see people lined up for the baby shower at 9 a.m. It didn't start till 10. And I was like, what are we getting ourselves into?
From every group of people in the community, the response was extremely positive and overwhelming.
But when you first walked in, you could get like refreshments and you had to sign in and they would give you a little card that you had to get 10 stamps on before your gift bag.
I wanted them to come and engage with these organizations and learn something that day. From 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., we saw almost 200 mothers and almost 500 people come through the community shower.
We're connecting with people that can help them have a healthy pregnancy.
So I never even knew that there was a such thing as a community health worker. And it's really helped me out through my entire pregnancy.
If we can make an impact, if we can save one baby's life just through all of this information we put out there, it was worth it.
I keep getting feedback from people saying, there's so much more to this story. This is such a wide topic and it touches so many parts of life. And to really realize that we hit the nail on the head as far as an event that was exactly right, that it was exactly what this community needs. It reminded me why I did this in the first place.
Are you at the bay?
Oh my God.
I'm sorry that I had to cut you off, but we're 1 minute to our next
Okay,
presentation.
but
So
Bull, can I just have one?
you can have 1 minute, but I'm gonna say to the group, these two colleagues are with you, not just for the rest of the day and the van ride to the airport, but the long flight back to South Africa. Lots of time to ask them questions. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a slide on a visit to the bank.
Okay.
And like Chris said, I thought we were just gonna go and we were sitting in on a sales meeting. But they switched that entire sales meeting around by getting the bank to pay for a series of articles on an athlete of the month in their 3 publications per month, in their 3 publications per month. So it was an amazing switch of just going and doing a sales ad. Can I please have an ad? No. Not this one.
Before or after?
Before. Oh, these slides are so important. They now.
Pick one.
Going back. There you go. Park National Bank. So it's $22,000 for running a series of articles between 2023 and the 2024 academic year, purely by doing a profile on the top athlete. All of these things were going to be done. It was a collaboration between the bank and the newspaper. So this is something that we need to take home with. $22,000 in that period of time. I think it's probably 8 series of 8 months. And so they're using editorial as a selling point. Easy stuff that we can apply in our own newsrooms. Okay, I think that's the 2.
Thank you. And of course, all of these slides are being shared, so you'll be able to read the whole slideshow, and I'm certain that Chris and Shirley are available. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Ohio Capital Journal, Simon and Mahmoud. Come on down.
I'll sit.
Okay. Mahmoud and Simon spent a week with Dave DeWitt and his team at Ohio Capital Journal. This was an unusual one. This is not really a newspaper, and they don't really serve a specific community. The request was, these two publishers of yours publish national news, right? They serve a national audience. The Ohio Capital Journal is part of a network that serves a national audience with a specific need. It's also a nonprofit, which both of these guys were interested in. So while it was an unusual fit, but these are 2 very creative publishers sitting here, and they were able to figure out what's going on at this operation that they can adapt for themselves and share with their fellow AIP partners. So I appreciate your extreme creativity and open-mindedness with the site visit. Go ahead.
Thanks for taking my intro. Okay. Afternoon, colleagues. Thanks. Yes. Like Prof said, how do you get to a national reach with minimal resources? So there's a background that we had from the underground where 2 media, big corporates, 10,000 staff members, and 11,000 staff members. 2 corporates merged into one. In a few months, they cut all the staff members to 10,000. But this is still large. So within that space, I think the state's newsroom found a niche in that. How do you operate nationally, but with minimum resources and very efficient teams? So what they did, they formed a nonprofit, which obviously gets funding from donations, and they don't get donations from corporates, private funding. So what they did was, let's form very, very effective teams across the country. So it's owned by state newsroom, the Ohio Capital Journal, with the editor, David, was given the naming rights. So he had to choose his own team. So they do that across the country, where they engage seasoned writers, retired writers, Pulitzer award-winning journalists, and they built a very, very focused team that focuses on politics. Politics is the main focus, and is done at state level, which is the equivalent of province, provincial level in our country. So Ohio Capital Journal is based in Columbus. It was established on the 12th of April in 2019. It's a nonprofit entity where they get donations from private individuals who are also listed on their website. So the incentive is like you get tax rebates if you donate towards the cause. So people who mainly donate are people that are very interested in journalism and they want to see journalism thrive. And they focus, like I said, on state politics and policy. They take no advertising at all. There's no corporate donations, so they're not aligned to any party or anything. So the focus mainly and the way they're built is they don't very centralized operations. So what you find that there's a team of an editor with a very close knit of 5 to 6 journalists. And they've got, in the Ohio Capital Journal's case, they've got 2 freelancers, one with a partnership from a television station and the other one from, is a photographer. The photographer goes around, obviously works for other people, but he gets to take their pictures and have a stock depository where they can always refer pictures to when in need, there's need be. So this particular diagram looks at the 34 states that they operate in with one centralized hub. So they've got one main office as well in DC, Washington, where they have the core of where the fundraising takes place. So the teams in each of the states just look at news. They don't worry about admin, HR issues. So their system allows the journalists and the freelancers to apply for leave, for instance, to get extra help or whatever they need from the central database, which is the core in the middle. So that gives them time to look at what matters most. Even the editor himself, for instance, he was talking about stock pictures. He gets an allocation of 1 a month, hey?
No, 5.
Five a month. 5. But it doesn't need to be because they've got a localized photographer as well. So in the worst case scenario, that's when he reverts to the central database for any stock pictures that he would plan. So the IT and support services are centralized, and they are under, the editor is under a national manager who oversees 4 to 5 states. So in this case, we go to the leadership, who's David.
He looks a bit different now.
Yeah, he's toned down weight and yeah. So yes, autonomous on how to run that particular bureau in Ohio. He oversees the editing, the planning, and the coordination. There are about 5 of them on the team. You see the members because we used to do the 9:30 meetings. They also do content sharing with the TV stations, and they rely also on republication. So their main focus is to have the news that they write reproduced in other publications. So the figures that you see later is republication and some of the subscriptions that come from some of their readers. And I realize that politics plays a main role in this country. So there's a lot of people that have vested in political news.
And just to add real quickly, the idea is that a lot of the state houses, a lot of the state capitals in America had robust reporting corps, press corps from all different media. And as big media started cutting back, they were removing journalists to the point where the state government was not getting covered hardly at all. And so the idea of the state's newsroom organization, of which this is part, is to make sure that there are serious journalists who do nothing but cover state level politics from the state capitals, but they provide the content for free to all the other news media. So they're basically creating a not-for-profit, purely public service State House News Bureau that serves all the other news media across the state. It's a very interesting model.
That also brings me to the definition of nonprofit in this particular case. The nonprofit approach here is not about the money. In South Africa, it's about the money. How do you sustain yourself? Whereas here, the nonprofit approach is how to disseminate news to other people that would want to reuse it. Their focus is 6 articles, 6 to 10 articles a day, 6 being the minimum, and the feature article. So they're very, very hardcore when it comes to that, except for Saturday night.
Yeah, so weekends.
On a Saturday, yeah, on a weekend. They've received numerous awards in digital journalism. You can imagine, because Dave is so passionate about what he does. And this is basically the makeup of the team at each level. So there's a national editor or national manager, then the editor-in-chief, who's Dave in the case of Ohio Capital Journal, with a team that focuses on those core topics: politics and government, then healthcare, labor and civil rights issues, education, and basically commentary, which Dave writes at times or one of the journalists. Then they've got a freelance photographer, who's Graham, and the TV reporter. She wasn't here that day, Susan.
No.
Oh, sorry, not Susan.
It's Megan.
Megan. So this is an example of a Zoom 9:30 meeting, which takes like less than 30 minutes, because everything is sharp, and people need to work on their story. So basically, that's it. They iron out the resources and let's go for it. So day one, we're at the tour of the State House. So which is interesting, our hotel is here. Their office is opposite the State House and the hotel is here. So it was just a triangle thing that we had. What I found very interesting was the existence of a coalition of journalists that are housed in the Senate House. So the radio in the State House, the radio, TV, and print journalism. So you see on the picture there on the left, that's the 2022 journalists that form part of the coalition. So every year there's a picture thing that like this. Since the beginning of time, it goes back to the early 20s. So they are well documented, the journalists that are involved annually. The gentleman there was kind enough to take us on a tour. He's very knowledgeable about the history, deep, detailed history. He's been volunteering for 26 years.
Yes, but it's usually a paid for tour, but he did it for us for free.
For free.
Because of his passion.
And he volunteered for the past 26 years, which is amazing. I mean, I found it amazing. That's the Senate House. We're not even allowed to get where the seats are. So these are the back benching, so you sit on the side there. Traditionally, the media still sits in that small box there. And there's another one at that corner. This is the front of the State House, and this is part of the State House Center. That picture there is worth $2 million behind.
The one behind David.
The painting there.
Yeah.
So this building is valued at more than 1 billion. If you look at the artifacts that are in, they've got the original carpet, guys, from the first time the building was built. So where we're standing, President, the first Lincoln Abraham lay in state right at the center there after he was shot. So that's the funeral process. Everything took place there.
Right there.
So it's a
He was, his body was at rest at state capitals on the journey back to where he was being.
yeah. So it's a very historical building. It's got Roman and Greek influences. The bricks, original bricks used. It was deep. It was deep, and it was quite interesting to learn that. Then there's restaurants in there and stuff, you know. So it's a very important building, and that's where the Senate basically. So there are 33 senators that sit in that. How many on average across the country? How many senators are there?
It varies by state.
Oh, it varies
So
by
each
state.
state varies. In some states, it's one senator per county. Here, it's broken down by districts, and then there's also a legislature that's broken down by districts.
Oh,
So it just varies by population and things.
I think a senator is an equivalent of a member of parliament.
No,
Mm,
state
you know,
senators, these
not-
are state legislators, so these only
It's
work at
not.
the state
No,
level.
it's not, yeah.
It's
Very
different.
structure.
Provincial,
Yeah.
like
Provincial.
Oh, okay.
Like you can equate a
Parliament is
Legislature, yeah, provincial
Congress,
legislature.
provincial
Yeah,
government.
provincial legislature, yeah.
you can equate a province to a county. in that
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, legislature, yeah. Okay, that's day 2 meeting, the 9:30 without fail. So on the previous picture, you didn't see Nick, who was on the field. Graham is the cameraman, and Morgan,
She's the
the
television.
the
reporter.
television reporter. Yeah, and this is the meeting too we had on the same day. So basically every Monday after the staff meeting, Dev sits with Mary Konata, who's the national manager, who he reports to.
Excellent.
Yes. This was founded, State Newsroom was founded in Nevada. They started with 5 states. Currently, they are in 34 states. They're focusing on 40 states by 2024. They form partnerships in some of these places where they can't have a presence, so they affiliate. Like I said, they use very, very effective teams and highly qualified. This is one of the days we went, and there was a Senate sitting, and they deliberated on some bills and some laws that were there. Interesting enough, it was the intro. They introduced youth and people that are doing outstanding work within the city. Like there was a lady who from Ethiopia who was an intern, and the outstanding work she has done with the office of one of the senators. Then there was a guy who won a prize for wrestling. So I think it was a provincial prize. So they bring those people to introduce, just to know who's who in the zoo. So after this, there was a press briefing, and the Senate president, Mr. Matt Huffman, was kind of enough to be told that we were around, and he acknowledged us in front of the media. So it was a nice thing, you know. We had our 1 second of fame. We were so lucky that because Dave has good relationships with the where Slee was, we took a walk to their newsroom one day because we also wanted to learn for profit. So we were the only team that did 2
Non-profit. I mean, we were at a non-profit.
Yeah, so for the profit. So we were the only team who had 2 experiences at once. So yeah, like she said, this is basically what she spoke about earlier, but what caught my eye was the events. Like they 32 vendors in one of their the coffee festival. So they do 3 main festivals: the coffee festival, the urban living tour. Urban living tour is basically using agents, property agents, to show premium housing within the city to a number of buyers and investors. The Sweet Treats Dessert Festival is another one. What caught my attention was also on the coffee festival. They used it as a branding opportunity. The mugs, you know, they branded with the name. So people take that as a takeaway, and they can always refer like, oh, who are these people? And hence they can grow their readership. Merchandising, t-shirts, and also consumer focused adverts and subscriptions. 3.1 million hits annually on their website, which is amazing. And up to 5 million, interaction across all profiles that they have. So that's us there with the publishers. We're lucky to be invited for dinner later that night by Sleeth's host. Yeah, so that's it. That's Nick, the reporter that focuses on politics at the State House. So he took us for that session. That picture is the next door to the hotel, which is the biggest theater in Columbus. And actually, one of my friends said it's one of the largest in the country. Yeah, because they got flagship. That's me at the soccer stadium, like I think you heard the story. And I found a state trooper before the proceedings. They do searches, security, and, you know, like search around to see if there's no terrorist. So we took a picture with that. Day 3, we had that same meeting. Morgan brought something interesting. There was, it was.
Yeah, it was the head of the Speaker of Parliament.
Yes.
Whom she interviewed, and off the record, he mentioned to her, we effectively offered her a bribe. Mm-hmm. And she got part of the conversation on the record, but it wasn't sufficient for them to report on it in order to actually do a proper investigation and expose it. But she reported it to the team. So it's kind of an internal discussion about what that could have meant had he been fully on the record, and what the implications would have been for the Speaker of Parliament or the Speaker of the Senate to have made an offer that amounts to bribery.
Yep. Day 3, so Dev sits down and do the newsletter design and how he schedules the social media, which was very interesting because we got to see the back end of his content management system and how he propagates the newsletter. So the tools they use, Salsa, which they use for design, and the content relationship manager, so customer relationship manager. But they are changing it as the national organization. They are changing it to something else because there's something that it's not doing that they don't like. So the newsletter that he targets 5,000 subscribers, and he mainly posts personally on Twitter and on Facebook, as well as the Ohio Capital Journal handles. There's a content monitoring tool that they use, and they also focus to see how many publications take their news that they've sent out. So the news consolidation, there's a to and fro between the journalist and Dev, plus the head office, depending on which article they write in. It was interesting to note that as much as they share, you also can pick up national news from elsewhere, so that they can see that the other writers can see that, okay, he's also sharing from his platform or onto the newsletter. And yeah, like we said, only Saturday they don't print, but Monday to Sunday. And he does hourly social media scheduling, like from 7:30, 8:30, 9:30, and repeating key stories that are on the newsletter. And he urged us that you guys, you should know and read about the Facebook and Twitter algorithm. See how it works so that you just don't post randomly, but understand how news is or content is sent out on these platforms. The May traffic snapshot, those are the page, the figures, page views, and each platform on Apple News, Facebook engagement, Facebook followers, and which stories did the most. It was a big sheet with other things there, but this is just a snapshot.
It's a summary.
Yeah,
of
the summary of, how it happens. And we were taken for breakfast, amazing breakfast, guys. It was a nice
Friday morning.
thing. Yeah, Friday morning when the last day. So we only worked on Tuesday to Friday. And very flexible hours. He doesn't push himself so much, but it's very impactful. We'd have the 9:30 meeting and meet at his office at 1. By 3, we're done with everything. But the results that you get are amazing from there. Yeah.
I mean, when you cover a state house, when the state house is in session, and they're busy, you're working 24/7.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when they're on recess, you take a little bit of extra time and you have a little bit more flex. And so you just basically build your slow time into the slow periods. When it's busy, you're on deck.
Yeah. Okay, Simon, thank you for that, because what Simon did was give a breakdown of the basic operations of Ohio State Capitol. As Bill indicated, this wasn't a perfect fit. But what I think we got out of it was quite remarkable in terms of our engagement with the organization, plus our engagement with David himself as a person. So I'm going to share some of that because I thought the takeaways for me were such that it actually has very, very powerful potential and consequences for my newspaper. And there's a few specific things that I think is worth mentioning. So when you look at the operation that Simon described, it's very slick, it's very structured, and it's highly well organized. This is a very well-oiled machine that part of it we saw in operation because we met some of the journalists at work. We were in their meetings. We sat with David when he did his uploads and he prepared his editorial. There was a part of the day when he spent with us in the morning. He went away, worked on his editorial. We came back in the afternoon and all his content was ready for upload. And that picture that you saw, the three of us sitting around his laptop or on his desktop, was where he actually completed the day's work. And that is the routine. And that struck me because it's a highly organized and structured organization. But the overall takeaway for me is this notion of a state's newsroom. 34 states, very well organized along the same lines that Ohio State Capitol is organized. And each state where state's newsroom is represented is the kind of news organization that does important political reporting. I mean, all of us sitting here realize it's one important common thing in common for media organizations. And I think the point that Shirley made, moving beyond watchdog to a guide dog, well, the guide dog part of it is what State's newsroom does very, very well. They hold public officials accountable. And the level to which they do it is such that we then know there's a deficit in public reporting on political activity, especially when it comes to political leadership. That's what they focus on, and that's where the money goes. And that's what I want to talk about next. The money is very important to us because this whole visit here to the United States is about sustainability. And this State's newsroom organization is a hybrid of private funding, donor funding, and membership. So David monitors that, but isn't responsible for it. Isn't responsible as an editor who typically has the responsibility to ensure that there's advertising and other kinds of revenue coming in. That's kind of the responsibility of most South African editors. That's not his responsibility, but he is responsible for driving the kind of content that is of public interest and for which members are willing to pay, because they do have a membership and they do call for donations. So there's the donations option. But most of the funding, the bulk of the funding comes from private donors. And on the website, they've got a list of about 300 people and organizations that does this, that provides the funding for States Newsroom across the 34 states. And what struck me about that is when we had a meeting with Mary Konatsa, I put that to her, and she said to me in the meeting, Simon and David, the four of us were part of that meeting, and she said to me that I need to put you in touch with Andrea. Now, there are two Andreas on the board, so I'm not sure which Andrea he was referring to, but that meeting we are still going to have. It didn't happen this week because he said he will be in touch with me, but it's probably going to happen when we go back to South Africa. So Simon, you're welcome to be part of it. But the very specific request I made was, I need to talk to your funders. Whoever can support independent journalism, even in another country, would that be possible? She said that is possible. Let's arrange with Andrea and let's see what outcome there is from a meeting like that. So that's one very powerful potential outcome that I think could have implications for our newspaper. The business model of both private funding and membership is a hybrid that we are looking at as well. So as a non-profit that does the kind of reporting, not entirely consistent in content with what they're doing, but where the convergence is I think where it kind of gives us a sweet spot to make the appeal. I mentioned, so the other important thing to mention about David is that David is a political thinker. He's a person of very, very serious political convictions. And we discovered this day by day as we went along. So when we took our drives to our various destinations, when we took us for shopping, when we went for breakfast, the conversations were partly professional and partly personal. And what I discovered was that we're dealing here with somebody who is committed to independent journalism, number one, is committed to broad human rights agenda. And I think I found that to be very consistent with what we're doing. I mean, culturally and personally and so on, I think there are differences what one can find between various people. But where you are united in terms of a common vision that is part of your profession, I think that unites people. And I think this is the one person I would like to remain in contact with when we go back to South Africa. Consistent with ours. Then the final point I'd like to make is the takeaways that we had with respect to our engagements with other AIP members. Because when I spoke to David, he said to me something quite interesting. He says that we may not be the same kind of news organization in terms of structure, but as far as content is concerned, there's at least one area of convergence. And we think you need to talk to your other hosts who are here as well. And that is why he actually felt he needed to take us to Columbus Underground. And that's where Slee was, and when we spoke about events in particular. So the events that we were introduced to, the coffee festival, reminded me of what we do in Cape Town with the Cape Town Big Walk. It's an annual event. 20,000 people come there every year. And Muslim Youth has always been part of this for over 20 years. We've been doing this, but we haven't monetized it. Why? Because all the money goes to the Red Cross Children's Hospital, which is a very important institution. So the ideas that I got from Columbus Underground was to actually find ways of the newspaper monetizing it. That's one. But secondly, in listening to, even before Chris and Shirley did their presentation, the conversation I had with Chris about solutions journalism was actually quite inspiring. So thanks, Chris and Shirley, because they shared an idea with me, which I thought I'll almost immediately implement. And that is, a newspaper facilitating a social action program that has a positive impact on the community and it has the potential for revenue at the same time. So solutions journalism presupposes it's a problem. So what is the problem? The problem with us in the Western Cape, a lot of schools, is that there are children who are drug addicts. So drug, infiltrate the schools. There's actually drug trade going on inside of schools. So that is the problem. Solution, a newspaper gets involved where we take somebody who has expertise in drug rehabilitation, bring that person inside of a school, partner with the Western Cape Education Department, which is our provincial education department, and do a series of articles where they do the reporting on the stats and the figures as far as drug problems are concerned. And then they get the rehab organization to actually do some intervention over a 6-month period. And that's a period over which we're going to be reporting. So the same day that I had a conversation with Chris and with Shirley, I wrote a proposal to New Journey Rehabilitation, which is an organization started by an actual drug addict. And he's the son of a very famous advocate in South Africa. And because we know each other, he looked at my proposal and immediately responded, yes. So now I've got a drug rehab center. I've got a number of schools that we've identified. And we already have a relationship with the Western Cape Education Department where our newspaper is involved in the essay competition. In fact, there's one running right now as I'm sitting here. They had a launch earlier today. And the WCED, the Western Cape Education Department, Muslim Views, a New Journey a Rehab Center, and 5 schools are going to start a project during the course of the year. I suppose in the 2nd semester, starting from maybe July, till the end of the year, or we might do it next year. But in principle, the stakeholders are already there. And that is the solutions journalism that I took from my colleagues here. So this experience for us is both in terms of learning from the site visit where we were, as well as from my colleagues who are present with us today. Thank you very much.
Awesome. All right, questions? Lee,
Actually, thanks, no, thank you very much.
hold on.
Oh, sorry.
Gotta wait for the.
Documentation.
Sorry. Thank you. Thank you for the amazing presentation. It's actually a question to Bill.
Mahmoud, feel free to interject.
No, I was reminded by one of I think it was the slides of the slide of the State House journalist.
Oh, okay.
That's what reminded me. I've always been curious. In fact, even this one is perfect because in our country, as well, we are independent publishers now, but this is typically what you would see. That image of people who still go out to the field, of people of that age, is very rare, but this is quite common here because, well, part of the reason in our country is one of the best ways to earn a decent salary is to start rising up the ladder. So you then are obviously office bound and you stop going to the field. But I've seen that here, I mean, for years, that you have really seasoned journalists who continue to be field reporters. How do newsrooms maintain that? Because I would imagine, I mean, someone with 40 years experience, even if they go to the field and they're not changed to some position, it's someone that you would have to pay really well.
Yeah, well, we do have, basically the longer you're with an organization, the more your salary will increase, right? And so we do have what's called the senior correspondent or the senior State House reporter. So, most news organizations that have multiple specialized reporters will have a senior reporter in each department, and they're the ones who get the money. They're not interested in sitting behind a desk. They're not interested in telling other people what to do. These are people for whom being in the field, gathering and reporting the news is all they care about. They're not journalists, they're reporters. right? We're all journalists. The people, the copy editors are journalists, you know, the page designers are journalists, you know, editors, sub-editors, those journalism is a big tent. Reporters, people who love reporting are very, very valuable, especially those who have been in the field for 20, 30 years because of, as you mentioned with your own presentation, that institutional memory, right? So we have a faculty member here, Tom Suttis. He is by far the most knowledgeable person about Ohio politics in the entire state, if not the entire country, right? He still writes editorials for the Plain Dealer. He operates our State House News Bureau program for our students. So he's in Columbus most of the time. He's one of these people because even though he's teaching and he gets a good salary for teaching and he writes editorials, and he gets good salary for the editorials, he can't stand the idea of not being in the face of these politicians, asking them questions. And because they know Tom, I mean, Tom has more seniority than most of these politicians, right? They know when Tom asks a question, they better answer it. You know, and so like, well, Jim Hines, who we gave the award to the other day. I mean, he's a very, very well compensated senior journalist with the Associated Press because he chose to live in Moscow and cover Russia at a time through, especially over the past few decades, when being an American journalist in Russia doesn't make you a very popular person, right? And so it's a calling. And for news organizations that need that information because they know that their audience is willing to pay for it, those are very high paying reporter positions.
I get that. I think I'm trying to get more at, so how do newsrooms afford those salaries? Because I think everyone would actually like that.
Sure. So mostly it's not the community media. This is where the mainstream media has a very important role to play in the United States, because usually the mainstream media are the ones that invest in having the State House and Capitol reporters and the senior reporters who cover lots of things. Where they've cut is from the bottom. And so whereas you would have a bureau chief who is still a reporter, but would have a staff of 2 or 3 additional full-time reporters, junior reporters, who he would tell them what to cover. Or they might collaborate on bigger stories, and then maybe 2 or 3 researchers who basically their job is to gather information, things like that, but they don't get the bylines. Now, many of these bureaus are down to the bureau chief is the only person, chief cook and bottle washer, but that position is still very, very valuable. Does that answer the question? And then what sometimes, and this is something that also has changed, when you had the chains that would have 3, 4, 5 properties all in the same state, they would also have a State House reporter. So that State House reporter worked for the 4 or 5 different newspapers in the province or the state to write about what was going there for all of them. That was one of the first things a lot of the news companies cut was their State House news reporters, but some of them kept them, right? Yeah. But what we've seen is a large uptick in these nonprofits, and State's Newsroom is not the only one that's doing this. So there are other nonprofits that are positioning reporters in the state houses to cover state level politics so that it gets covered and then it can be shared with the national network. So that's where a lot of that is coming from.
This is, I mean, you know, when I think about the exodus in our newsrooms, and I am talking largely about commercial media, you see it in the quality of the journalism. You feel it, you know, as people exit the industry to PR jobs. And largely, I know in our country, well, there is the frustration with as proprietors change and you get more venture capitalists buying these companies, and we know when they come in, what they do to resources. But there are people who their hearts is still in journalism, but it's just that journalism, you know, doesn't pay them a decent salary.
Well, so some of the State House and Capitol reporters in Washington, D.C., they have their own side hustles too. So because they're experts in certain political areas, like an expert in environmental policy, they may also be asked to write for very specific newsletters that are focused on policy. They may be asked to come on to national television shows as experts, sources. They get paid a little bit for that, you know. They might write columns on the side. So they might get a little bit more money that they might have adjunct teaching positions with universities. So a lot of them also have little side hustles to make a little bit of extra money, but they do have a base salary that they could live off of. And that's because the news media know that these people, if we don't pay that, we're not going to have that valuable content.
What makes the state's newsroom stand apart is precisely because they're well invested and well resourced, which is why they are highly structured and effective news organizations, and their journalists are paid reasonably well.
Now, I don't want to speak for State's newsroom, but I imagine that their overall strategy is to have a senior editor at each of the locations. You know, David's relatively young and the site's relatively young, but David's in it for the long haul, right? And then the revolving door is among the younger reporters who come in and do 4 or 5 years before they move on to better paying jobs, right? Like Megan Henry, she's one of our graduates as well. You know, she's amazing. And they poached her from the Columbus Dispatch, where she was a very good education reporter, you know. But, you know, if at some point she's like, okay, the salary's maxed out and I think I'm worth more than this, she could go on to a better paying job and David would be fine with that. And then they'd hire a younger reporter to come in. So it becomes kind of like a training ground. And I think Richland Source does that too with their ground level, don't they? They have a number of young reporters, and their idea is that these younger reporters are not here for the long haul. They're here for a short period of time to gain some good experience in solutions journalism, and then get hired away by other organizations that can pay them more. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is one.
Yeah, and Jay's open, and Jay is totally, and Larry are totally, they're transparent about that with their hires. It's like, we're not expecting you to come here and spend the rest of your life here if you don't want to.
One thing to note, because of how they get their money, it's hard hitting. They don't have to suck up to the officials. So he mentioned a number of occasions that most senators don't like
It's
him.
truly
In fact, the
independent.
exact opposite. Their funders are people who like that they're in the faces of these usually corrupt or leaning corrupt politicians, and that they're in their face and they're not backing down. And the donors are like, that's what we want. That's what we're interested in funding.
We might find that in our country, I think it's the opposite. We need to suck up because we need.
David mentioned a number of times, none of these politicians like him.
They don't like him.
They
So,
don't
so
like
he
him.
sent his reporters go rather. He doesn't go and cover that bit because they don't like him.
But that for their business model, that's valuable.
That's
It's very
That's
And, you know, and we have a tradition in this country of gadfly journalism. The gadfly is the fly that's constantly annoying you,
Oh, yeah.
right? And so there's a market for gadfly journalism. There always has been. But advertisers don't like gadfly journalism because sometimes the advertisers are the targets of the gadfly, right? And so usually these are funded by people with deep pockets who have political ideologies, but basically they're like, we hate corruption. We're anti-corruption. We're millionaires. We are anti-corruption, and we want these gadflies to be in the face of the politician. And you certainly have people like that in South Africa.
Yeah.
You just have to find who they are, the deep pockets that they want South Africa to succeed. They want there to be another 30 years of democracy. They want to clean up the corruption. And if you can find them and say, hey, we can do that, but we need to be independent of, in a certain degree, from the moneyed interests who profit from corruption, you might be able to get them to open their wallets and fund some money towards you.
So it is an interesting thing because from the outside, before I was kind of part of community media, there was a sense that community media was softer on politicians than the mainstream media, and that somehow or other, you know, we were just we kind of you know, like if there was a difficult story, we'd avoid it. If we could do more lifestyle stuff, then maybe we'd do that. So I think there's something that we've got to like unpack around that, because I think the thing is, it is about building community, and it isn't necessarily about having this, you know, adversarial relationship for having an adversarial relationship. I mean, that's not the point. But I do think there's something interesting about that perception, you know, and I don't know, you know, that we are a bit soft. So that's the one thing that I think is interesting.
One of the things is that, you know, the State House news reporters, whether they're with the Ohio Cap Journal or they're working in the mainstream media, is they are essentially parachute journalists working in the state capitol, but they're not the neighbors of the politicians they cover. It's a lot different to be a gadfly for your county commissioner, your city council members, when your kids go to the same school and you may go to the same church, and you know, they are members of your community. And so it's easy for, and this is one of the reasons why there is so much tension between politicians and major press, is that the antagonism is part of the game, right? And it's an antagonism that comes from both sides, but that doesn't work at the community level. You know, and so, you know, my mantra to students is, if you're working community journalism, you should be friendly with your local officials, but not their friends, you know, because they are still people. Many of them don't go into public service because they really do think they can help.
Yeah.
You know, but they're imperfect. Many of them don't have the background, the training, the expertise to be very, very good at what they do. So they're going to make sometimes some pretty boneheaded mistakes. They're going to say things that they probably shouldn't say, etc. And if you have a journalist of this level who's only in it to say, gotcha, expose bad politicians, that's going to erode the effectiveness of your local community harmony. So to what you were saying, Kate, there is a degree to which community journalists are softer on their politicians, but that doesn't mean that they're soft.
Yeah.
They could be a little bit more accommodating of mistakes and not assume corruption. Sometimes, I would say most of the time, mistakes made by local government is a matter of incompetence, but not corruption.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's the case in South Africa.
Well, it's an important point, and thanks for raising that, Kate. What I find is that when you focus purely on political reporting, it's a kind of a template that you hold public officials accountable, and you can be hard on them. But for a newspaper that reports on its own community, that is where a relationship must be borne in mind. And that relationship, if I speak for my newspaper, is we look up to our religious leaders. We respect them because you go to them when your son or your daughter gets married, or a child is born, or there's any kind of community event where you require the presence of a minister or a sheikh or an imam. But when that same sheikh or imam is involved in a sexual scandal, you've got to be able to create that necessary distance between yourself and the subject in order for you to report effectively, to report in a fair and a balanced manner. And yet at the same time, bear in mind that these are your leaders whom your community respects. So it's a very hard formula for us to be able to implement. And I've had very, very serious differences with my own editorial board, the board of directors, and my editorial team members about how we can approach and cover some of the stories. But those are very healthy internal discussions to have. When it comes to political reporting, it's fairly easy. When it comes to reporting on your own community, it's more complex.
And also, you know, as a young democracy, and I know 30 years seems like a long time, but you know, your democracy is older than Kay here. So, you know, one of the problems we have in America is most people think of the press, the relationship between the press and government, as inherently antagonistic and hostile, which leads good people to not want to serve in public office. If you want good people to stand for public office at the local level, you have to also make sure that the press reports on the good things that government does, so that they feel like it's a job of great responsibility, but it's a job that commands actual respect. It's not a power authoritarian thing. It's if I run for school board, I'll be respected by the local media. rather than attacked constantly and accused of corruption. So that good people will stand for public office. We have a problem in this country. We can't get good people to stand for public office. One of the problems with our government is most of the people who run for government are inherently corrupt. They only want to do it for what they can get out of it personally, or they have these crazy whack job agendas that they want to push because they know good, reasonable people aren't going to stand for public office. And unfortunately, our electorate over the past several years has proven that we will absolutely elect megalomaniacal, blatantly corrupt, outrageous, crazy people to public office, right? Even if a good, decent person is running against them. So, learn from America's mistakes. Don't go too hard on your elected officials just because they're officials. And make sure that when they do something good, you make sure you report that they did something good. Give credit where credit's due. Dooney.
No. I think, when we are reporting about budget, you need to balance this thing. Because I realized this thing where we're coming from, Yellow Spring. When we met the village manager, he told us how they operate, how they work. They given us this document of the council, and there's a bank statement there of the council, how much they spend, this month, what they've done. There was, although they say it's not a corruption, it's just a mistake. When the one official was going to visit Washington or New York, he booked his ticket and also his wife's ticket. But that story, it was not there. In the newspaper, they didn't cover it. We assume they have to protect the relationship. But the village manager put it nicely. I was just a slight mistake. In fact, it was not even supposed to do that. But they put it nicely. It's a mistake, and put every paid money back.
Exactly. Encourage good government and acknowledge that we're all human.
But if a leader is always making a mistake or is always involved in wrong things, when you are there as a journalist, what do you do?
Well, you just report on the pattern of malfeasance. But let the public decide whether it's malfeasance by incompetence or malfeasance by corruption.
My mayor has been involved. I think it's 3. He was accused of using municipal funds to go to a political conference, but he lied in the documents, saying that he's going to have a meeting with a non-governmental organization.
You report on blatant corruption.
And then he used R500,000 to go to South Korea. And whereas other municipalities around the area were saying, we don't have money to go there. And the community was asking questions. What are we going to get about your visit, from your visit? Right. He didn't come back with anything. But I wrote those stories. But there was a meeting there in our municipality. He stood up and said, Andile is attacking the municipality. He's like this. He's not a patriot. He's like this and that and that. So the situation, I had to call a meeting with him and sit down with him and say, look, you are a politician. I am a journalist. You are doing wrong things, and I have to write about those things. Fortunately, all these things, when those stories were not, I didn't break those stories. They were written first by the mainstream media, like Media 24, Business Day, and others. Now, I just wrote some of the responses from the community, but he was attacking me. But he ended up understanding that he is the face of the municipality, and everything that he does matters when it comes to the media. So that's the situation that we have in other areas.
Well, sure, and we have that here too. The county sheriff here in Athens County several years ago was indicted. He's in prison now on corruption charges. He was basically taking money out of their petty cash and taking his family out to dinner once a month. It's a small dollar crime, but it's a crime. But we have layers of government. He was flagged by the state auditor. The state auditor said this account's not adding up. the money's out, but there's no receipts for what the money was spent with. Most of these government offices do have petty cash on hand because sometimes you need some petty cash, right? But he was using the petty cash for personal issues rather than for official uses. And he's in prison. I swear to God, it's been 10 years. The sheriff down in Meigs County just got arrested and is under indictment and probably is going to go to prison for the same exact thing. And we're talking about $40 a month. You know, so it's like, you know, if you have an oversight, government oversight that's flagging this type of stuff, that's what you report on. It's like this person's got his hand in the till.
At the same time, with the issue that Kate is talking about, that we seem to be polite when as community media. We do not have the capacity to investigate, to go deep in some of the stories. That's why you will find that it's going to be difficult even to get information from maybe the communications officer or the police or something. Because in our area, Bill, you will find that you don't have a communications officer for the SAPS, that is South African Police Services, in our town. You will find in let's say in Columbus, is not here. And it's going to be difficult even to phone that particular person to get the response about what you need. So that's why you'll find that we don't have the capacity to go deep down like the mainstream media that in some of the stories. So that's why you will find sometimes that we do not do justice in some of the stories that we do.
Well, but that's, again, like I was saying, you know, the stories about the 2 local corrupt sheriffs, that was not investigated or broken by the local media because they also don't have the capacity to dig in for that. But it was flagged by the state auditor's office, and it was flagged as just an irregularity in the funds, right? And then the local media, when they got the auditor's report, hey, there's an irregularity in the funds here. And they asked the sheriff about it. The sheriff said, well, that's not a problem. That's when the state attorney general's office caught wind of it. The auditor's office in Columbus didn't say, hey, we think there's criminal activity here. They just said to the sheriff's office, there appears to be funds missing. What's your response? And the local media got a copy of it because it was a public record. And they just reported on the discrepancy. And that's what started everybody saying, oh, wait a second. You know, and both of these sheriffs are correct. It's relatively small amount of money that they could easily have paid back, even with interest, to avoid jail time. But the state attorney general wanted to make an example of them, that corruption is corruption, no matter how small.
Yeah.
You know, in America, we will spend $1 million prosecuting a $5 crime. You know, we absolutely will, if there's the politics to do it. And so, you know, keep an eye on those types of just kind of routine, boring, regular reports from auditors and inspectors, and usually it's just a report of findings. It's not alleging any wrongdoing other than there's something wrong with the books. And like Amy said the other day, with, you know, it's like you can download these reports and sort through it and see, hey, there's a discrepancy here. What is it? And analyze the database, and then you start sniffing around, and then the story may end up in your lap without doing any really hardcore deep investigation. All right, are we done? I think we need to move on to the next one.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anita, can I just get a quick drink of water?
No.
What?
Why?
What?
They said you address so many things. And I'm thinking, umbrella, there are nicer pictures when you're standing. Standing again with wow. Oh, this is better. I'm not surprised that it's
Yeah, ne?
I'm not surprised.
Okay.
Guys, I'm gonna go soon.
Yeah.
Not drive safe. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Kay. Osmont, you have the reins? You have the reins?
Yeah.
All right. All right, Anita. Once again, our most patient delegate. Waited till last. Part of this was because the Salina Daily Standard is a morning paper, which means they're just starting their workday now. Okay, so we wanted to accommodate their staff so they could be able to tune in. All right, Anita, will you please tell us about the Daily Standard in Salina, Ohio?
Right. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I greet you. I greet everyone. Oh, sorry. Sorry, the pastoral just came out. Okay, thank you for the opportunity. I firstly want to thank the AIP and also the Ohio University for this opportunity. And I want to thank the Daily Standard for allowing me to be able to learn all the information that I'm about to share with you now. We can go to the next slide. The history, I'm going to just be very brief on the history. The company was started by Seth Snyder and a judge whom I assume was his friend, who later then sold his shares to his brother. But just to shorten the history, this publication this year is going to celebrate the 175th year. And I just want to show you, maybe I should stand because this sitting is making me nervous. Okay, so this edition that I'm holding now, this was their 100th edition. And in this edition, they have explained how they started, who started, and how the ownership has evolved as the years of the. So now they are at the 5th generation of the operations of the publication. So just to save time.
You have plenty of time.
Yeah, I want to focus on my video more. Okay, this is the staff. They make it all happen. As you can see, this is Aaron, who's in charge. He's the general manager, is overseeing everyone. Then you have Bill K. There's a lot of Bills in the office and there's a lot of Aarons in the office. So it's such a confusing. Yeah. So Bill is the senior editor. He's also a journalist. And he is phenomenal. He checks everyone's story, every single story before it is published in the publication. And they have a system, once you've done, it's printed out, he checks it, he reads, it goes literally to the story. If there's any changes, he makes the changes, and then he signs off the paper that he has edited the story. So he has this red pen that he uses, that he signs off the stories. Bill T, the graphic designer, I enjoyed spending my time with him because he is doing what I am doing, which is the design. And I got so many tips from him that shortens my time that I spend on design. So there's a lot of things I'm going to do different. Erin is also a journalist and she's also doing design. Learned a lot from her as well. in the middle, you will see, I say hard work pays off. They belong to the Associated Press, who has this award for journalists and newspapers, and they've won a lot of them, even to the staff level where they've won. Gary is the sports reporter. He works with Tom, and they have 3 pages of the publication. They're responsible for the 3 pages, sports only. They report on the sports, they design the pages, they edit the pages, and the pages still okay. He edits that as well. So yeah, Paige, the photographer that I went to Rockford the first day, had an amazing time in Rockford. Now, this was so funny because in the whole town of Rockford, when we went for the Memorial Day, I was the only person of color in the whole town. Only person of color in the whole town. What? But I never felt funny or not welcomed, or it was such an amazing time in that place.
That part of Ohio is very, very white.
Yeah, I was the only person. So,
but very, very Christian.
Yeah. I just forgot his name. I asked Aaron, but he didn't send me his name, but he's in charge of plating. He's in charge of plating. When everything is done, it goes to him, he plates, prepares for press, and then it goes to press. Ryan and I also forgot the other brother's name. They are in charge of the technical side of the business. So what they have done, they have looked at the newsroom. They've identified challenges, and some of the challenges are the systems that are being used in the organization. So what they have done, they have come up with this amazing system that you book in your advertising. Everyone can see. If I get an ad, if the sales rep get an ad, you come, you log into the system, you book your ad into the system, you tell the system where it's going to be, is it the color, is it the black and white, all those kind of little details, what the size of the ad is. And then Aaron would then at the end of the day print that. So what is amazing about the system is that when they're done with their deadline on advertising, it can tell them how much space they have left for editorial. Amazing. So that, editorial, and anyone can go onto the system and see, oh, we're standing like this for advertising. Those are the pages that are free. That is the content that is needed. So they have this amazing system. But as much as they have this system, it's a wire.
Wire.
Yes. So they have this system which they've developed, and it's working very well. It's actually good for everyone. And also the other thing is, they don't work in silos. If Mbali is not there, Slee can do Mbali's. The system is so open that I can see what Slee is busy with, I can see what Mbali is busy with. Everyone knows exactly where we are in the process, because what you do, immediately when you're done, you upload your stuff and everyone can see what you're busy with. And if there's any assistance that you need. Becky, who's been in the company for 33 years now, is responsible for the designing of classified ads and obituaries and all those other stuff. She's also an all-rounder. She knows every single department, and she's doing an amazing job. Then it's Ellen. Ellen is the circulation manager. I'll show you later on what she's doing. And then there's the sales team, Melissa, Messi, and Aaron. They have 3 areas of operation, and each and every one of them works in a specific area. They have also a system which is created where you have an annual calendar. In May, this is what we're doing. So you can already sell in advance your ads in your specific area, because you're going to have that tab, or you're gonna have that insert. So they have an annual plan and they stick to the annual plan. They know this week, this is what we do. So they can sell their ads long in advance. And it's all part of the systems that created. Thanks, Bob. Okay, this is just the 100th edition, some of the editions. And then they believe community is key and local news is all that they cover, nothing else. Local, yes. Just in all the areas that they focus on, that's the only news that they cover. They don't cover national news.
So they do 5 editions a week.
And they do 5 editions a week. Yeah.
So that's very rare anymore. 5 print editions, a lot of cut back to
Actually
3 or
6.
less. They do 6.
Yes.
Wow. Oh, they do a Saturday. Right.
Yes, the Saturday edition. Okay, so the deadline is quite tight, quite tight. Every day from this time, the newsroom is busy. In the mornings, you will go, you're gonna find maybe Bill K, but no one else, because they start from 3 to 12:1, depending. Okay, this is just the revenue streams, and just this kind of, they have this board that reminds them what they're doing that week. So every edition, every day, they would be, this is what we're doing in today's edition, this is what we're doing in tomorrow's edition, this is what we do. And this page, they've just recently run this, where you parents were given the opportunity to give a picture of when your child was little, and now they're in matric. And it was a good seller, good seller. Yeah, and these are just the tab, the grabs, they call it. This is the special editions you will see. I brought copies. This is where they make their money. And this is also one of them. And that is just the associated, just to see who are the other members in their surrounding area. So the revenue streams, print advertising, subscriptions, and what they do with subscription, if you subscribe to the hard copy, you can access the e-edition for free. And then they have the sales of the newspaper, the special supplements, which are the grabs. They also have inserts. And then they do, because they own a print press, they do print other publications as well. Right. Yeah. This is now, this is amazing. There's so much history in this place. They have, the building is actually 5 layers. 5 layers, and this is like in the bottom of the building, where they still have all the old print press stuff. Those type of things, they still have every single one of those things. It's packed. Look at how they keep it. Look at how they have these little shelves where everything is still neatly kept after 175 years, sitting with a rich history like this. And this is how it looks like now. This is the current press. Yes. Thank you, Paul. Okay. Yeah. Now, when the print is done, it goes to the 3 staff members here. What they then do, they have labels that comes from Ellen. Every single paper that goes to either the post office will be hand labeled, specific to the area. And then they will bundle them up like this. So they know they're 3, they're 75. So all that is done to 7,000 copies. And then, and this is how it looks like when it's done. So these boxes are offloaded at the post office. We were there. It was 5 o'clock in the morning. That's why it's still done. Because I wanted the experience. Yeah. And I'm doing nothing during the morning, so I might as well just have that experience. And it was amazing. And then Aaron goes to this little mobile vending machines of them, takes out the previous day's edition, which is left from the vending machine. He takes out the points if there's any, and he has these little purses that he has. So wherever there's a vending machine, there's a purse in it that is labeled So if he's gonna go to, say, Pick and Pay, for example, there's a purse for Pick and Pay, and when he gets at the vending machine, he will take out the money, put it in that specific purse, close it up, and take out the old edition, put in a new edition, and then you will write down so many copies were left. Things like that. Okay. I get to carry the.
It's really old school.
Yes, yes, yes. I love the way they work because that is how I operate. I write everything down and I keep a record of everything. You can ask me anything in my business and I will tell you where to get it and how to get it.
I mean, the presses are from the 60s, so that's why they don't have a automatic inserter. They have to hire inserters. They don't have a mechanical insert.
No, I'm just thinking.
They
in
have
our
inserts.
country, we ban ATMs. They would ban those vending machines.
I said to him.
Oh, the newspaper boxes?
Yes, because there's money in it. Yeah. Okay.
It's not burning, it's warming.
It's okay, so this is sorry to me. This is how the vending machine looks like. And this is just in front of one of the takeouts. They have 3 distribution vehicles that they use. What is interesting about these 2 pictures? This is an old man coming in, bringing something in an envelope. I don't know whether he's coming to, because they are allowed to come and submit stories, suggestions and whatever, but he also buys the paper at the office. This lady came in, looked for a specific edition because there was something in the edition that she wanted. And the manager, he went to the archive, got the edition for her, she browsed through the paper and she's like, this is what I'm looking for. And she takes that edition and she buys a new edition of the day as well. So that's the kind of things.
One of the dailies I worked at, the returns, when Aaron was taking the old papers out of the box and putting new papers in, the returns would then come back to the office and we had a month's worth of boxes in the front office so that we put the returns in there because people would say, do you have a paper from last Saturday?
That's the same thing that they do.
And that way they could grab it and sell it.
That's the same thing that they do. Same thing that they do. So we go, he goes around.
Usually it was, how many
all this-
copies do you want?
Yes.
Oh, you got many? I'll sell you 5.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay, Bill. Right. Admin system, like I said, manual as well as electronic. So anything that you find in manual, you're also going to find electronically. This is the billing system. These are subscribers who are now going to receive their bills. Yeah. This is just the circulation manager's office with all her areas of circulation, how many papers goes to where, and all that. This is the labels that I was talking about, that the 3 inserted, they get a stack like this, which they label specific. This one was the master. They still have a clock. I don't know how they call it, but
It's a time clock.
yes,
Yeah.
they still have this. So whenever you go into the office, yes, I'm here. When you go out, I'm out. And that's how. So nobody's gonna fool anyone because there's a clocking. Yes, there's a clocking that you were here or you were not
If
here.
you're not a manager in a newsroom, you are considered an hourly employee by the federal government. This is to fulfill their federal government employment requirements,
Okay, all right. Wow,
including reporters.
yeah, because they all.
But the smaller papers like that you're at, with the halftime people and stuff like that, they're not considered full-time, they're contract workers, they're self-employed, they're owner operators, they're management, they're almost all exempt. But daily newspapers, because they usually have a lot of people who do work very specific shifts, they are required by law to check in and check out. And if they work over 40 hours, you have to pay them overtime. That's the law.
And then just here in the middle is a mileage sheet. So whenever you have to travel, otherwise you won't get your money back. But this one, it's a photo capturing. So if you are the reporter and you want a specific picture of image of where you're going to cover a story, you need to tell Paige in advance through this sheet that tomorrow you are covering this event. So she must please make time that she can come and take pictures for you. If you don't do it, you will have no pictures. That's how they work. And then this is just for obituaries. They write all the obituaries because it's a big thing. Obituaries is a big thing. So they have this little notes where they write, this is the obituary that's going in today's edition, tomorrow's edition, whatever. But they still do these things manually as well as electronically. Okay, this is just where I was telling, when I was shadowing, what I learned from all those that I've shadowed. And also, I'm just going to focus on the key takeouts. Develop systems in your newsroom that will make things that you don't have to take a lot of time, but will make you look professional and where you can be able to keep a record that you can track things. And these systems that has proven in the Daily Standard that if you don't have enough stuff, if your system is well sorted, then like us, we 2-man operations, we 3-man operations. But if you have a system, you can say, today I'm focusing on advertising, tomorrow I'm focusing on that. And all these things you would have captured somewhere, and then when you have to retract them, you have them. But it all goes about system, and system comes with discipline. Because you can have all these things, but if you don't execute them, it is also not, it's pointless. Okay. And you must have a team that understands your vision and your mission. Very important, because Aaron most of the time is not there. But that newsroom operates like a well-oiled machine. Everyone is passionate about what they are doing, and they want to make sure that the content that goes into the paper, he doesn't even need to approve it because he knows that they're doing a good job. They decide on their own headlines. They design the paper because they have a plan. They have a calendar that they work on. They know if they are running this edition, the stories that must go with this edition is related to what they were focusing on at that specific day. So if you don't have that, it's difficult. What I also picked up is that they have incentives for their staff. Hence, you're getting a 33-year service, 25-year service, 40-year service, because they have retirement funds, medical aid, things like that. And also, his staff is paid weekly. I asked him why. He said people have needs. People need to pay their bills. Hence, I'm paying them weekly. Fair? Yeah, and the freedom to be able to make decisions, not having to wait for Usimbali to decide what must I do. Simbali must trust my judgment that I can do this. And they have that freedom, all of them. All of them, they have that freedom. And then have a plan, a short-term plan, a medium plan, and a long-term plan. It is important. Plan your newsroom outcomes in advance and stick to it. And remember, it's about the community, not you. So all your content must be relevant to the community you are targeting, and have multiple revenue streams and let them be realistic. Doesn't help to have all these plans and you know that you're only a 2-man operation. How do you think you're going to do it? Be realistic. Take on one thing at a time, make it work, move on to the next. So you are building up. At the end of the day, you find yourself, you have 5 revenue streams, but you've built them up over a number of months, years, whatever. Thank you, Bill. Okay, highlights. On Monday, when we were covering the memorial, this is one of the veterans. We first met at the graveyard where they did the salute And then he came up to me and he gave me one of these cases.
Didn't get a number, simple number.
And
when you put that in your luggage, wrap them in a note that says, "Dear TSA, these shells are commemorative of Memorial Day in Salina, Ohio."
Oh, okay.
So they don't think you're a terrorist.
I was actually thinking maybe I should just leave them around, but
Just
I
write
don't want trouble.
a little note and put in there to TSA.
Oh, okay. All right. And then we went to where the actual event was happening in town. And they had all this nice speeches and everything. And then he comes up to me again and he gives me another one. So yeah, that was just awesome. And this was the highlight. The Wednesday when they were busy with 2 publications at the same time. A 14-page, the daily, which must be out tomorrow, and a 36-page grab, which how they call it, at the same time. Multitasking. You have to make sure that the story that you place goes into the correct paper. Because remember, Aaron is helping Bo, so they split the pages between themselves apart from the sport pages. So they need to be 100% sure that the content goes in the right paper. The images goes with the right story. I commended them for that. Because they were literally helping. If Shirley is done or Shirley is battling, I come to Shirley and I ask, is there anything I can do for you? That's the kind of, and Aaron's there. Aaron is not there, who's the general manager. They take control of that newsroom. And even in those 2 tabs, Bill K still edits every single story. Every single story. That's amazing. That is done by people who are passionate and are running a business in a business, because they take ownership of the business. They don't regard themselves as employees. They take ownership of what they do. And then they did a story on me. It's there on the link. You can go and read it. It's on their website. It was in Monday's edition. Oh, nice. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, so those were my highlights. Okay.
And she found out that the presses used to be here at
Yes,
Ohio University.
yes, I forgot. The press belonged to Ohio University. The one that they're using now, it belongs to Ohio University. It was sold. It was split. Half was sold to the Daily and half was split to another publication. But that publication eventually sold it to them. So they have the full piece of the original machine that was at the Ohio University. And Uncle, I forgot his name now, but it's no. He was part of this, the removing it from Ohio to the Daily Standard, and he's still operating it up until today, 40 years later. Wow. Yeah. He maintains the machine. He knows every single knot and everything on that machine.
Those Goss community presses are just, they're PMWs, they'll run forever.
Yeah, no.
Oh.
And it's so well taken care of. It's really well taken care of. Right, well, okay, that's just me exploring. You can go further.
This is the view from her hotel.
Yes.
Room.
Overlooking the lake. Overlooking the lake. Right. What were my expectations? To learn old and new business models and see how they are making them work, to compare our challenges to theirs and whether they are similar or different, and if they are similar, how they overcome them. To see how they operate their newsroom, administration, advertising, editorial, distribution, and circulation, and see how I could better my newsroom. To learn about the advantages and disadvantages of owning your own press. Those were my expectations when I went there, right? Did they meet my expectations? Yes, they did. The secret lies in planning and then execute your plans, no matter how small, big your newsroom. setting goals is important. Put workable systems in place that can ease the workload and time frame of executing certain tasks. See what organizations are available in my country that I can gain access to certain resources, platforms, and legitimate content, because they have Associated Press where they can get stories from. So if your reporter is tied up, you can get still good stories from what pictures, high resolution pictures, but you have to be a subscriber to get that content. Then they also subscribe to another site where you can get examples of ads. So you don't have to crack your skull of, if you have a funeral ad, what are you gonna, how are you gonna, you just go on that site, look for something which can work for your client, and then you make it work. So, and they have a lot of other platforms that they subscribe to that they can draw content from, examples from, and it makes the workload easy. Because if you have these resources in place, no matter if you are 1 person, 2 person, 5 person, 10 person, you can still give a professional publication. And then the diversifying your revenue streams. Not focusing on government ads only or whatever ads, but look at other avenues. And that is what we have learned since day one that we come here, and that is what they are doing. The last one is a quote that I got from Aaron, where she said, Aaron, the general manager, told them that you need to learn to bake a cake with the same ingredients, but with a different outcome. The example I want to show you is that all these additions are different, but the front page is the same. There's no change in the front page. It's the same, the layout remains the same, but the cake is different. There's a new head, a new leading story on the page. So that's where the baking of the cake goes to, with the same outcome. Consistency is the key. Be consistent in what you do. Immediately when someone sees, they can already say, this is Dizindaba. This is the informer. They need not to wonder what this is. Thanks, Bo. Okay, that is where I wanted. But before we go there, Bo, I want you to skip that slide that I can just finish and then we. This is a cash register that is 100 years old. It's still in the reception area and only one button is working. But it is so beautiful. It's this antique piece that is there. Wow, you cannot miss it. You cannot miss it. I'll come back to the and then yeah.
I don't think your video is embedded here.
Is it not there? I send it. I send it separate so that if you can't open it there, then
there is a message from somebody about the shells. Should I read it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Just check the significance of being given the shells as a gift from what is known as a 3-rifle volley. The shells are from the volley fired by the squad at the memorial event, which are actually blanks. Also at funerals, usually family members who have lost loved ones are given the cartridge cases as commemoration items, supposed to symbolize duty, honor, and country.
So yeah, you want to hold on to those.
Yes.
But you want to put a little note in your
I
suitcase
will.
that Tia said.
Wow. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So this is just a video of the print.
Oh, I'm having trouble getting it out of the email here. Just give me 1 second.
Because I was alone, the quality is not going to be that good, but I tried my best.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, can I have the lights back, please? Just 1 second. And I think I might have to rotate it. Hold on. It's shot, for some reason, the aspect is turned sideways.
We're about to go to press. The plates have been finished. Everything is ready. This is weird.
I can't, the file doesn't allow it for it.
Yeah.
So I'm confused.
I never in school, but. So they are,
So there's no way to rotate it.
yeah, so that's the plates that are done, they are put in there, prepared for the press. And that's the press. So everything starts here, going that side. Sorry that it can't open the way we wanted to. So this is like the press, this is the whole press. And this is just before production.
And it's got 4 or 5 units? 4?
I'm not sure. I haven't.
Looks like
counted.
4
It
units.
looks like 4 units. though.
If they're doing color, they need 4 units.
Yeah, yeah, it is 4, yeah. It is 4.
Okay, we will be 175 years old this year. You know that?
There's the uncle that I'm talking about.
On the paper, nice t-shirt.
Yeah.
That's it.
It can't be.
That's the end of the video.
No, it can't be.
It is. 1 minute, 30 seconds.
It is longer than that.
That is not, that's the entire length of the file.
We're about to. It is supposed to be 20 minutes.
It is not. The file you sent me is done.
Yeah, something happened.
Lights, please.
Yeah, okay, but it's gonna be on the AIP thingy because I did send it to Des.
Okay.
So you're gonna have the full experience of from the start through. But the amazing thing is that the printer, once it starts, it will run and then
I like the t-shirt.
It's the elevation. It's very high up in the mountains.
Okay.
Now you get lightheaded. Yeah.
Okay. So it will start, it will run, and then it will, all the first copies will be missed because the printer is still finding its colors. It's colors. So there will be a number of copies, but you're going to see the video. It is there, and then it starts to print. So what they do after a certain number of copies, they pull one of the copies from the print line, and then they check whether it's printing correct. And if there's something that they need to tweak, the uncle will take the spanner.
It's the registration to get the 4 colors to line up so that they're
amazing, guys.
You know that you see the little crosshairs in the corners of the pages.
Yes.
What you try to do is get those crosshairs lined up so that
Yes.
all 4 colors are in registration, and then you let her rip.
Yes.
And then they flip on their main switch and it runs twice as
Yes,
fast.
yes. And then they check and it goes through the, so as the paper, they pull out one and they check if there's the color or something is not right, someone will go up there, but you will see it was all in the video. Screw something or do something, and it's amazing. And after that, they will be packing it and then it will go to the inserters and they will put in the insert and they will also label the papers and but all the labeling is done by Alan, the circulation manager. So when they come, they get the batch of labels and they just do their job. But they only come in 1 o'clock in the morning.
You can tell a good newspaper that cares about it from a lazy paper. Lazy papers might distribute some of what we call the front runs, which are the newspapers where they're doing a rough registration, but they're still out of alignment, but they're still readable.
Yeah.
But the photo colors will look a little fuzzy because the
Yeah.
yellow doesn't line up with the magenta, et cetera. And so a cheap newspaper will actually put some of those out on the rack. A good newspaper won't do anything until that registration is
Yeah.
pure.
They check, they continue to check. And if it's not what they want, they put that batch aside and
Yeah,
And those front runs usually get pulped.
yeah, yeah.
And so it can be very wasteful.
So yeah, they have a lot of waste. They have a lot of waste. So yes, that was my experience. So both when I go back to my slide. Last page of my slide. Okay, yes. Be yourself, be original, because an original is much more worth than a copy. Find your niche and excel in it. By being the conscious of your community. Be great in your space, don't compete with others.
Questions for Anita?
Wait, no.
So first question, the one thing that we were always talking about at AIP is owning our own printing press. And we almost have consensus that it's not a viable option for us. It appears to be working for them.
It's working, and
How is it working?
it's working for them because they are not intending to let go of it. And what I've seen is that because they are daily, they have much control over everything because they know that the press belongs to them. So they don't have to worry about a print press deadline or whatever. When they are done and they are happy with the content of what they want to put out, then they go to print. And Aaron was saying paper is not expensive for them. It might just be the ink, which is expensive. And because the uncle is so good and he knows the machine in and out, maintenance has not been needed a lot. They only had one instance just before I came where in the middle of print, the printer just stopped. And because it's not a new machine, they could not pick up where the fault was, only to find it's just a cable that needed to be, but they fixed it immediately. The next day,
Okay,
it
so,
was.
so the press is fully paid, they don't owe any money.
No, they don't owe anyone.
It's been paid off.
Yeah,
completely
yeah,
paid
long
off,
time.
and they use it every day.
Every day.
So that's a complete publishing
Yes,
solution for the
yes, yes.
Well, they also do jobs for others.
For others,
Yeah,
So it's a revenue generator.
They
The
generate
presses pay for
revenue
themselves.
Yes.
when they can fit it in.
Yes.
But priority goes to the publication and the printing of the newspaper.
Well, they also do a lot of tabs.
Yeah,
So
they can have like 4 tabs in a month.
Yeah.
That's how
So it's something for us to
this
bear in
thing
mind,
is the money.
that unless any of our publishers print every day.
Yeah.
And they own the press, there is no alternative for us but to do what we tell them to do.
Well, except if let's say you were to start a printing co-op, right?
Yeah.
And you have a 4-unit system where you can do this kind of thing, you do
Right.
4 color. Are you willing to adjust your publication cycle so that you've got your slot? And then you've got your slot, and then you've got your slot each week, but maybe your slot is Monday afternoon, your slot's Tuesday morning, Tuesday afternoon. It would require.
That is a logistical and a scheduling issue. I think the more important.
But what I'm saying is that the press is still running all the
Yeah,
time.
but
And then it's that way it's
the
paid
more
for itself.
important question for us is the capital cost of investing in a printing machine. And that makes it completely unviable.
I think for them.
Well, now,
Mm.
a new one, absolutely. A
Yeah.
good used one, no. A good used one is actually very affordable, especially if it comes with the press operator who loves the machine. and
Yes,
runs it.
because he loves them. Uncle Jake's loved
I
the
mean, a
machine.
press operator loves their machine like
Yes.
an engine tender loves their engine. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, it's their baby.
Our colleague in the Western Cape, Uncle Joseph, he's very passionate. When I saw Uncle Jake's, I said, there's Uncle Joseph. Because he knows every single item on that machine. You can tell him nothing about that machine. And he loves that machine.
And you know, I just want to add to that, to say that is a boss machine.
Yeah.
It's a demo machine.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's a manual one.
Uh-huh.
Where you're saying they use
Yes.
banners. Rising Sun in Durban, they use a boss.
Mhm.
They launched it, maybe now it's been 8 years. it's an automated one.
It's a newer one.
It's a newer one, so things just run.
Exactly.
So I'm just saying the cost might be a factor. yes,
Exactly.
But it would be a very viable option.
Very
for us to
viable.
own a pen.
I mean, in the United States, because of consolidated press operations, a lot of these old press units have been sold for scrap because there's no market for them anymore. You might find that somewhere in Africa, South Africa, there's a press shop that was shut down 10 years ago. The presses are just sitting there collecting dust, and they're heavy. And so it's like, you know, it's like they might sell it to you. They might say, take it,
Yeah.
get it out of here for us and you can have it.
We should look at
And
it.
Like an old piano. you
And the
know?
cost might be less, far less, especially if you've got an uncle like Uncle.
Yes, Jakes. Uncle Joseph. Yes, colleagues, before I forgot, this is what your sales rep would be taking to their clients. And what I loved about what Melissa said is that when you're targeting a client and you know you want that client, you make a pre-mock ad for that client. So by the time you get to that client, you sell that to the client. This is what I can do for you in the publication. And in 99% of the time, the client will just say, yes. So that's how innovative we can also become. If you want to target a specific client, do research on the client, put something together, and by the time you go to the client, you go with your full package and you just sell yourself to the client. And once again, to those clients that don't want to go in to advertise, this is where you get them with the grab, because this is always a topic specific. So they want to be in here. They want to be in here. So they have they have bridal, they have for school, they have for sport, they have a lot of them. And as I say, they can have like 4 or 5 in 1 month. And you're talking 36 pages and more. Yeah. And this is an annual thing. So clients pre-book sometimes. You already know that I have X amount of clients that is definitely going to go into this thing. And all the sales rep do is they just keep the relations with the clients so that it can be a continuous thing.
And I think,
Tuni?
No, I think very much. I didn't know if I knew that the vending machine I should have switched. I said, no, I want to go with that side. But I think at least like now we found, the right people who can give, the correct information. Because, in South Africa, yes. They'll tell you it's very difficult to run the printing press. We are more than 100 and something publication. So I just want to check, we say a part of the newspapers that are printing other people's stuff. Did they tell you how many publications, how many they didn't?
At the moment, they only have 1 that is printing with them, and it's just 500 copies. So I think how they keep the machine active is by being a daily and the different tabs that they run. So because these tabs, like I say, you can have like 5 in 1 month. And it's 30 to 36 pages, sometimes goes to even more than that. I think this one, let me just check. Look, this one is a 72 page. 72 pages full of ads, every single page. How much have they made just out of this one?
Vanessa, is it a big town?
No, not at all. I think it's loyalty because they are very community orientated. What the community says goes. Content, they don't compromise. Hence, they're not covering other stories, just community, just what happens they have 5 or 6 areas that they focus on, and that's all that they cover. And they make sure that they cover it very well. From your sports to your whatever, it's there. And people have the luxury of coming into the public. If they publish anything which is contrary to the community, the next morning,
there will be someone at the door or people at the door telling them, what are you busy doing now? Because this is not our publication. This is not what we want to read in the publication.
By the way, I just looked up on eBay, just did a quick search. A lot of times the used press dealers will not list the prices.
Oh.
Okay, you have to call them for a price because they want to negotiate, but this is on eBay. I don't know where this is, but it's a single unit of a Goss community press, so it would only be black and white, but it has a computer to plate system, so you print the plates directly from your computer. You don't have to have a camera. $30,000. That's the cost of a car.
Wow.
In America, not a nice one. It's a Subaru. So just letting you know that these press units are affordable. If you can find them.
Okay.
So thanks, Anita. I mean, a fantastic presentation. But there's something very interesting which you were just saying then, when you were saying, the community would then come to the publication and say, look, we are unhappy with how you've covered something. And there was something interesting, and I think it was Al Cross, I think, who said something about the fact that this is also, again, what's tricky about being in community media, because absolutely you want to serve the community in the way they need to be served. But sometimes you also want to criticize the community because they're not doing something that they need to. And you have to be kind of almost holding them to their kind of highest ethics. So I just wondered if that came up in any of the conversations.
I actually did not. I actually did not ask that question. Yes, I actually did not ask that question. But I think we can still ask them. And also what I forgot to share is that they have this storeroom, which is like an archive room. And they have archived the editions from the beginning up until now. It's in this cabinets. It is made in book format. All the videos I'm going to share so that we can, it's made in book format. So you can literally go take this book that is as big as this, and you can go and look for a specific edition or a specific issue or topic that was covered in that town at a specific time. That's how rich that place is with information. And they keep all these things, every single. That's why I was asking them, are you at some point gonna open a museum or something? Because you have such a big building, you can do it. Display all these machines and children that want to do journalism and all that, they can come and learn from you.
So they own the building.
Yes, yes. So yeah, wow.
I mean, the 175 years.
It's
everything's paid for. And those bound volumes are very common. Almost all newspapers until the last 15 years would send out for bound volumes. And it's like, going into it's like from the Lord of the Rings, Gandalf pulling these giant books out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what we are learning with this exercise, because most of the publishers that we visited do extra activities other than their publications. And this tells us that I know in South Africa, we expect people to say, please, can you do this for us?
But you need to.
As a company. But I think in this case, we should be
innovative,
using our own discussion and saying, what can I do? What special publication can I do for this month? So that I can get this revenue.
It goes back to planning, Simbali. Planning, planning, planning. They have an annual calendar and they stick to it. The annual is breakdown to week, to month, annual, and they stick to it. So the sales reps are not confused. They know who to target, they know what to do, they know which tab they're gonna run. So when you have a workable system like that, you can do these things. You can do these things. It's all about planning, short-term, medium-term, long-term, and having systems in place. That's what I have learned, and that's what I will implement.
Over the lunch break, we were talking about the culture of not sharing. right?
Mm.
The culture of being afraid of giving up your
Yes.
ideas that other people might steal them.
Mm.
But something that an AIP could do is organize brainstorming workshops, like, okay, we're gonna be, how many provinces, 13? Nine provinces, this is easy. Okay, so all AIP members from this province, we're just gonna have an afternoon brainstorming session where you just bring your calendar of events, we're all gonna sit down, we're just gonna say, okay, what are some good ideas for special sections that we can do over the next year? Just like, who was it who said they did that? Oh, Monica. Monica said she did that with her newspapers, that they come every year and they say, okay, what can we do for special sections?
Yes.
Brainstorm among yourselves. You don't compete with each other.
Exactly.
Right? But the province might have some things that are province-wide where you could each produce a special section about that province-wide event that is getting local ads to support it. So there's things you could do collectively where individually you get to profit from it, but you're bringing the collective wisdom together to come up with the good ideas. You know, and develop that culture of sharing ideas, not being afraid to give your ideas to other people in exchange for them giving you the good ideas.
Because that's the culture here. That is what we are seeing, and that is what we have been hearing from day one, is that people work together, people share. And that's why they are where they are. And that is something that we are lacking. We're lacking in that. We lack to share information. And that's why you think you're going to grow, but you still remain stagnant because you don't want to share your ideas. Because I could have assisted you maybe with something, but because you don't want to share, you keep this idea to yourself. It's not working for us. We've seen it's not working. We need to start sharing. We need to start being there for each other. Is that the part where I say?
I think that's the absolute best way to end this entire 3-week program.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. I'm not into ceremonies. So no, this was a great 3 weeks. Thank you all for your contributions, for your patience, for your insights, for your good humor. So the plan tomorrow, I understand, is you want to leave the hotel at 10. Okay, so Jot and I will be at the hotel at 9:45.